Good Friday morning, and thank you for joining us here for Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. We are live here from our streaming studio in Hampton Roads, Virginia. You can see us all packed in here. I got producer Sarah Calloway in here, our traffic anchor Marta Berglund, who's with us this morning, and then meteorologist Craig Moeller, who's going to get into some really big news that's coming out of the South right now. I want to let you know that we are monitoring a few different situations that are happening live, some of them set to kick off here just momentarily. At the top there, we're expecting to hear from Minneapolis officials following that deadly shooting by an ICE officer of that 37-year-old woman in Minneapolis. That woman, by the way, Renee Good, a graduate of Old Dominion University right here in Hampton Roads. And at the bottom, you're seeing a crowd starting to line up. I do believe that is in New York City as people await a court appearance for Luigi Mangione. If you remember, that is the man who's been accused of killing a healthcare executive. So we're expecting to hear a little bit more about that coming up. We're also monitoring the continuation of that trial of that former Uvalde school police officer accused of not doing enough there in Texas for that Robb Elementary student that claimed school shooting, that claimed the lives of 19 children and 2 adults. But before we get into all of that, Craig, I talked about you had some very important news to kind of share. You're tracking tornadoes in Mississippi. I know we got our forecast here, but you're monitoring a lot of things right now.
Yeah, we came off the weather desk, and yesterday we had the Oklahoma City tornadoes. The one south of that, one of them in the town of Purcell, about 40 minutes or so south of Oklahoma City. There were 2 confirmed tornadoes yesterday in Oklahoma. So what I want to update us with right out of the gates, let's take a look at the map, and we'll take this full, if you would, Sarah, just so we can get into this. I'm going to zoom in and show you this community down here. You see this area, it's down around Heidelberg, Mississippi. We have a pretty good couplet here. I am looking, this is all radar indicated, but as we take a look here, tornado warning, which will run through 9:30 Central Time, that's 10:30 Eastern. Only about 4,700, I say 4,800 people under this warning, so it's not an extremely densely populated area. But nonetheless, this is a dangerous situation potentially. And while I'm showing you right now kind of the radar mosaic there, you can see the area highlighted. Let me put a track on this so you can get a feel for what areas will be impacted by this cell as it moves along to the northeast at about 45 miles per hour. I'm going to put it right here, this part of the warning, and then run it off in that direction. That's where that circulation is most likely. And you can see some of the towns there, Vosburg, Nancy, you can see some of the other ones there on the screen, Sykes, Zero, Butler, some of the different communities there that are in line and the corresponding times when that circulation may reach them. Now, Heidelberg, this area, there's a small town down there. Again, there's a couplet that is very, very close to that location right now. And it's been radar indicated, but I got to tell you, looking at the velocity profile with this, it is a pretty significant return there. So given this line, the history here in these rotations, folks down there do need to pay very close attention to it. If you guys like, I'll go ahead and get into our Hampton Roads weather as well. I know you had some questions about that, Eugene.
You answered some of my questions already about the tornado, so I'm really glad that you brought that up too. But I know it's a very big difference between what's happening in Mississippi and the weather that we are, dare I say, enjoying here in Hampton Roads.
Yeah, beautiful here. You said you have family down there. Your mom is south of that tornado-warned area.
Yeah, well, it's my aunt. It's my aunt who's in
Okay.
the Mississippi area. She just moved there from Louisiana about a year ago. So I was just, listening into the areas you were talking about, but she should be good.
Well, we'll continue to monitor that and keep everybody updated. What I want to get into is our local headlines here in Hampton Roads. We've got warmer weather on the way. And yesterday, the high, we had temperatures that were cooler. Generally, we were in the mid-50s to upper 50s. Today, we're going to be back up into the low 70s, so much warmer. We have rain chances coming up over the weekend. I think we could see a little bit overnight tonight, and then sunshine and colder weather for next week as well. So cooler conditions. Now, this is a graphic that I updated this morning that I'm so excited about. You take a look back December 21st when we had the winter solstice, shortest day of the year. We had 9 hours and 38 minutes of daylight here in Hampton Roads with the sun up and sun down. Today, we have 10 more minutes, and it's kind of interesting. Our sunrise is actually 4 minutes longer than it was on the shortest day of the year, but the sunset is now 14 minutes later than it was back then. So you do the math, it's an extra 10 minutes, 9 hours and 48 minutes of sunshine, and it's nice. And when you start getting those sunsets getting later and later, by the end of the month, January 31st, we will have a sunset around 5:30. That's what I like. Those
I like
longer
that.
afternoons, right?
Especially on our schedule. Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness. The stretches where you go to sleep and it's dark and you're waking up, it's dark. It's just, so you like to have some sunlight earlier in the time frame.
It's nice. And I mean, Hampton Roads, this is such an incredible place to live. So we can take advantage of those strolls along the beach or maybe along the rivers here. It is gorgeous, but you got to have the sunlight to really enjoy it. All right. So right now, the Thompson Creek Window Company Skyview showing some activity, some thin clouds off to the north. In general, we're in good shape. I think Sarah gave us the high sign that you've got some more news to get into. So I'll just mention for the weekend, look for more warm weather tomorrow. Rain chances coming up late Saturday into Sunday. I think we'll see a little bit overnight tonight and early tomorrow. But the big news, temps fall Sunday, and it'll be much cooler to start next week.
I love everything that I'm hearing about this weekend, Craig. We appreciate you so much. And you're right, Sarah. Did flag this. We are now going to go out to Minnesota, where Minneapolis officials are talking in the wake of that deadly shooting involving an ICE officer there. Right now, we're looking at the mayor of Minneapolis, so let's listen to what he has to say.
That there is some conclusion drawn from the very beginning. If not hide from the facts, why not embrace them? If it's not a problem to have additional people at the table that have a deep commitment to the process and transparency and have run these investigations before, then why not include them in the process? The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension at the state of Minnesota has consistently run these investigations before. They have done so without bias. They have done so with a great deal of expertise. This is not some radical, way out there group. This is a group that is formed by experts who understand how to investigate. Many of them have been police officers themselves. So our ask is really simple here. Our ask is to embrace the truth. Our ask is to include the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in this process because we in Minneapolis want a fair investigation. Is it deeply concerning that this administration from the very get-go is drawing the conclusion that they may ultimately come to? Of course it is. And if you got nothing to hide from, then don't hide from it. Include local experts in the process. We got nothing to hide from here. All we want in Minneapolis is justice and the truth. And speaking of the truth, let me give you another one. I have heard countless people talk about Minneapolis, many of them who have never been here, as some form of post-apocalyptic hellscape, as a place that is dangerous. Well, let me give you a statistic. 50% of the shootings that have happened thus far in Minneapolis this year have been ICE. In other words, we've only had 2 shootings. One of them has been ICE. We are a safe city. ICE is making it less so. We are a city of unity, but ICE is trying to divide us and tear us apart. For every one of the people that you see standing here behind me, they have more than 1,000 people behind them. They have people that are committed to their neighbors, committed to integrity, committed to justice, and committed to getting the truth. We will not back down from it. Among those that won't back down from it is the person who I'm about to introduce. His ward is right on the borderline of where this particular shooting happened, and that is Councilmember Jason Chavez. Would you please give him a warm round of applause?
Good morning. My name is Jason Chavez, and I have the privilege of representing Ward 9 on the Minneapolis City Council, where ICE murdered Renee Good. I want to let you all know that our entire community is mourning because of the inhumane tactics of ICE separating our families, forcing people back into the shadows and the pure brutality by immigration's customs enforcement. The videos that we have all seen, yourself included, does not match the false narrative from the federal government. In fact, you could hear the words, "I am pulling out," moments before ICE decided to take the life of Renee Good. She was a mother, a wife, and a beloved community member, not a domestic terrorist. I'm calling on Trump's FBI to allow the Minnesota BCA to have access to all the information so an independent investigation can occur. It is important and critical to our community to have a sense of trust in this process by having an independent investigation to present to the county attorney so that adequate charges can be made. But most importantly, I am here on behalf of my entire community, echoing the calls to arrest, to prosecute and fire this ICE agent who murdered Renee Good, and to hold those accountable complicit in this crime. What has descended upon Minneapolis and in this state is not the American dream. It is not what the American dream is about. Our immigrant neighbors are here to work. They're here to provide for their family and to achieve prosperity. Instead, what we are seeing in Minneapolis and across this state is ICE kidnapping our family, following folks driving to work and kidnapping them, following people as they're heading to school or to the daycare, picking up our immigrant neighbors from bus stops. While neighbors are struggling to afford groceries, they're picking them there as well. I've personally been on the streets since this first happened, and I've seen too many ICE agents kidnap our neighbors from their cars. And to that, we're always going to condemn it. And as we continue to ask for justice for Renee Good, we're going to ask our community members to stay on alert. As a proud son of Mexican immigrants, I ask Minneapolis and Minnesota to rise up, to do everything in their power to defend our immigrant neighbors, to continue to observe the illegal actions by ICE, to blow your whistle when you see immigration enforcement in your neighborhood, to get trained on rapid response so you can educate your neighbors on what is happening on your block, to provide rides to your immigrant neighbors who need to go to work, who need to get groceries, who need to see their children come back home safely, to help your immigrant neighbors move their cars during snow emergencies, because what we are seeing is many of our immigrant neighbors being picked up simply by moving their cars. To help your neighbors take out the trash, because there are many reports of neighbors being kidnapped while they are taking their trash out. To support our immigrant-owned businesses, to drop off groceries to our children, mothers, fathers, our community members that are starving, and to let know that ICE is not welcome in this city and in this state. And lastly, we're here to demand justice for Renee Good.
My name is Aisha Gomez. I serve as the state representative for District 62A, the south side of Minneapolis, where our beloved community member was murdered this week. I'm so grateful to Councilmember Chavez for explaining this moment to us and calling on us as a community into this struggle that our neighbors are facing. With respect to the investigation into this shooting, there's really only one question in front of us. Are we going to design a process that's legitimate or not? In 2020, the state legislature created the Force Investigations Unit after the murder of George Floyd, which happened right around the corner, 7 or 8 blocks away from where Renee Good was murdered. This unit was established after a long process of looking into what are the best practices when there is an officer-involved shooting. We learned a lot about this in 2020. in Minneapolis, unfortunately. One of the things that we learned is that if you actually are interested in public safety, if you actually are interested in the legitimacy of a law enforcement force in your community, then you must be invested in accountability, in transparency, and in fair investigations when bad things happen. And so that's the question in front of us. Do we want a legitimate investigation that pulls in the professionals of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension who are trained to do this, who have done this over and over, who have the kind of local connections and local legitimacy that the FBI could just never have because they don't have that kind of presence here? Or are we going to have a discredited farce of an investigation? And so as a group of elected representatives who are deeply invested in the safety of our community, and thus in the legitimacy of these processes, we call on the FBI to share the evidence with the Force Investigations Unit at the BCA and have this be a legitimate and trusted investigation. Thank you.
I'm Hennepin County Commissioner Irene Fernando, but you can call me Commish. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a very, very proud child of immigrants. I'm the youngest woman to ever serve on the Hennepin County Board. I'm the first Filipino American elected in the state, and I'm Hennepin's first board chair of color in our 174-year history. My heart is grieving for Renee and her family. This is an unimaginable and preventable loss. I honor Renee's humanity and life, and I acknowledge the deep pain felt by her loved ones and neighbors. The taxpayer-funded actions and harm we are experiencing right now are inhumane, unlawful, and unconstitutional. United States due process means that justice is pursued through legal action, credible investigation, and courts, not through guns, murder, and violence on our streets. There's jarring footage that show ICE agents stage at elementary school bus stops and going door to door. Often agents are unwilling to provide a badge number, a warrant, or any legal documentation. This is a terrifying reality for Minnesotans since we are still grieving Speaker Hortman's assassination due to the impersonation of a police officer at her doorstep. Our community has experienced the national spotlight with law enforcement shootings, which required significant change and reform on how such cases are examined, investigated, and communicated to the public. It is critical for our communities to have some sense of trust in the process in order to meet the standards set by Minnesota law and resident expectations. This is why we're calling on the federal government to cooperate with a joint or independent investigation conducted by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. The thought is that they would do this together, but if for some reason that is not possible, please allow shared evidence for a parallel investigation. The Minnesota BCA is the only nonpartisan state agency equipped to investigate robustly and effectively, in part due to their establishment of the Force Investigations Unit. They have the expertise, they are equipped, and they are ready to pursue justice on behalf of Minnesotans. Alongside their own investigation, the BCA, alongside the federal investigation, the BCA can and should conduct this parallel process, which means full access to the information, evidence, and case file. Because in Minnesota, we expect that investigations are completed by the BCA to then get reviewed by the county attorney to determine if the use of force was appropriate or not. We have a process here to review force. We have full trust in this process and in the county attorney to do the objective review needed based on the facts and Minnesota law. The idea that our federal government would not fully cooperate with the BCA in an investigation creates even more mistrust among our community members, because we know federal investigations are very rarely released to the public. Our justice system and we are here together to ask for and request full cooperation by the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office to provide full access to the BCA so they can conduct a thorough, complete, and independent investigation to determine if the use of force was justified or requires additional accountability. Last and certainly not least, just directly to residents, our neighbors, our friends, our family members, our coworkers, our kids. I am very, very proud of our unrelenting courage, compassionate caregiving, and a fierce resilience towards justice. It feels very hopeful and very fearful, but together we can and must resist the urge to give in to the numbness that comes from this type of attention. Because numbing our pain might also numb our shared humanity. And it is only through the collective wisdom in our bodies and ancestral storylines that we will get through to the other side of this. Together we come from powerful, loving, and resourceful stories. Our cultures and ancestors have found ways to construct creativity from pain, joy from fear, and hope from oppression, and we will do so again today. Ultimately, I do believe that our shared humanity and love for one another will prevail, but that only occurs when we all rise with one another. Leading with integrity, caring for one another with dignity, and fighting for our shared humanity without apology. I and we remain in this fight with you, speaking our truths and leading towards accountability and justice. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am State Senator Zeta Mohammed. I think I speak on all of my colleagues, especially colleagues in the Senate, when I say we are here on behalf of Renee Nicole Goode, a beloved wife, mom, daughter, and neighbor who was needlessly and brutally taken from us in Minneapolis streets on Wednesday morning. That night, thousands of us gathered at the site to grieve the loss and to mourn Renee and to rally for justice. Everything I have learned about Renee, about her humanity and compassion, tells me she would have been there with us, speaking truth to power and turning pain into poetry. This federal government has given us too many reasons to not trust them to do the right thing. There are thousands of agents were sent here under a false pretense in the minutes after an agent, and the minutes after an agent's shot, they refused to render aid. And their leaders have used every opportunity since this tragedy to lie about the facts, to lie about Renee, and to blame her for her own murder. There were many witnesses to Renee's murder, and the horrific videos we have seen make us all witnesses. This was a crime in broad daylight, and the attempt to cover it up is another. Renee is owed the same rights we promise to every American: due process, respect, and truth. We know what we saw, and everything short of a full and an honest investigation is an insult to her memory. Everything she stood for, and everything we stand for as Americans. At 10 o'clock today, we will honor the life and legacy of Renee Nicole Goode with a moment of silence. Every moment before that and every moment after that, we will honor Renee by remembering our neighbor and calling for justice at the top of our lungs. And with that, we will take questions.
So the question stemmed from an answer from a press conference that happened in New York City just yesterday, where it was asked, what is the general process for doing this? Are there legal remedies that are available at the city, county, state level, et cetera, where we would have the ability to move forward with either some form of investigation or prosecution? First, there is some precedent that is important here. There have been instances in the past where there was some form of shooting or an officer-involved killing that took place by federal agents or U.S. Marshals or beyond that did have local and state entities in control. By the way, we're not even talking just about full control here. We're talking about being at the table. We're talking about an investigation that includes the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And for those that may say that we have a predetermined outcome, we are not the ones that are conducting the investigation. The investigation would be conducted by the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. They are well equipped to do it. They have a long track record of doing thorough investigations and, by the way, coming to results that both saw culpability and a lack thereof. As far as the legal mechanism to do so, I'm not going to jump the gun here and give you a mechanism to prosecute through the county or the state before we actually know what that legal remedy looks like. But I can assure you there is potential there that is available. Go here and then. Well, I think what this does ultimately is expose the truth. What did they say when they came in here? What has this administration stated as their reason for coming into cities around the country? The reason that they've stated, safety, driving down crime. Well, let our statistics speak for the trajectory. They are clearly driving crime up. Up until last night, we hadn't had any shootings in this city other than ICE. Our city is safe. Our city is welcoming. They are making it less so. And so it is a massive issue that they continue to exert their presence in Minneapolis and beyond. By the way, it's not just our city that is feeling the impact. I know that there are a number of legislators behind me that can speak to that. This administration has also said that they're very pro-business. That's also garbage. I don't have a specific statistic other than anecdotal evidence to point to, but they have had a massive and detrimental impact on a number of corridors throughout our city, including like 80% reductions in customer base along East Lake Street and many other corridors throughout the city. And so bad for business, bad for safety, bad for unity, bad for democracy, and bad for this republic. We want them out. Let's go over here and then go over there. So the question is, if there's no full independent investigation of this shooting, what will the effect be? I mean, I think it further undermines trust in government. The quickest way that you erode trust in government is to refuse to enforce and hold accountable people on laws that you pass. There are laws that are around this. There are standards that are around this. They should have no concern about having a full and transparent investigation here. See where that investigation leads. Look at the facts, collect the evidence. And the fact that they are for some reason concerned about having other, by the way, police involved, other law enforcement involved through the BCA, that is wildly concerning. We're not asking to be at the table in this investigation here. We do think that people that have some willingness to see things clearly are. Well, I think we got to get to a point here where we're not trusting everything that they're saying, and I think you guys they're there at this point. I mean, I think he also asserted that because you work at the federal government that you somehow have absolute immunity from committing crimes. That's not true in any law school in America, whether it's Yale or Villanova or anywhere else. That's not true. If you break the law, if you do things that are outside the area of what your job responsibilities require, and this clearly seems to be at the very least, this is great. At the most is what you heard people say back here. This is a problem and it should be investigated. Yes.
A couple questions for you. First, have you heard personally anything from the Trump administration or the president himself? And also, the administration has pointed to some of your comments right after the shooting as turning up the temperature in this city. Yesterday, we did see some protests that, turned volatile at times. There was pepper spray, there was tear gas. Do you stand by your statements to telling ICE to...
Yeah, they stand by their statements. Do you stand by your statements? Yes. I stand by my statements. We stand by our statements. I'll look back to what I said. What I said was it was reckless abuse of power. Yes, it was a reckless abuse of power. I said that what the narrative that the administration was pushing in the immediacy following this shooting was garbage and false and BS. It was. I stand by every one of those. And, this notion of inflammatory comments, I mean, come on, guys. I dropped an F-bomb. They killed somebody. Which one of those is more inflammatory? I'm going with the killing somebody. I'm going to do a couple more, and then I'm sure there's some other people behind me too. Yeah. Yeah, that seems, the way you put it, it's pretty grim. What you just said, and I think, to repeat for everybody, Donald Trump said that Renee ran the ICE agent over. Don't take my word for it. Don't take their word for it. Watch the video from every single angle. I mean, the ICE agent walked away with a hip injury that he might as well have gotten from closing a refrigerator door with his hips. He was not injured. I've seen worse injuries from doing that. And so give me a break. No, he was not ran over. He walked out of there with a hop in his step. And so we just got to get to the point where we're at least operating from, hey, this is we're looking at it on the video screen. This is what we're seeing. Can we all see that he wasn't run over? And then, J.D. Vance, this concept of absolute immunity is pretty bizarre. Very concerning. It's extremely concerning. That's why we're asking for the BCA to be part of the investigation.
We have time for about 2 more questions. Does someone have a question for someone other than us?
Do you want to answer that? I don't know the exact timeline, but I imagine the answer is yes. Go for it.
Jamie Long, State Representative, Minneapolis Representative. There have been instances in the past where the FBI has shared information weeks after or even months after. It would be much better if the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension were able to be involved right now. There is time-sensitive evidence. There are memory lapses that happen if you aren't able to interview witnesses right away. And so they were invited by the FBI to participate in the investigation jointly originally. And then for some reason they decided to walk away. We are asking for their full participation as the FBI intended originally. They were clearly told by somebody that they couldn't participate anymore. And when you have the President of the United States, the Vice President, the FBI Director of Homeland Security already coming to conclusions, and then they are told on the ground that they can no longer be involved with local investigators, that causes a lot of concern. And to us, time is important, but they should be involved in the investigation at any time that they're allowed to be.
So the question is whether I can talk or describe about interactions with Ms. Good and who she was as a person. It would be completely inappropriate for me to do so because there are other people that really knew her, and I did not.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we just heard a lot there from Minneapolis officials, and this following that deadly shooting by an ICE officer on Wednesday morning that killed 37-year-old Renee Good, who, by the way, was a graduate of Old Dominion University here in Norfolk. I want to look at a few things that we just heard from that press conference that lasted for roughly 25 minutes or so. You heard there from the mayor of Minneapolis, who says that there have only been 2 shootings in the city since the start of the new year. This was one of them. He pointed that out because they have been listening to rhetoric that has been pushed out very critical of him and the governor of Minnesota about the state of Minnesota and that city when it comes to crime and violence. So he wanted to put that out. But you also heard them speaking about their desire to have some form of independent investigation by the state into this cause. The reason why they kept saying that is because the FBI is reportedly blocking Minnesota state investigators from any evidence related to the case to be able to investigate. Now, the ABC affiliate that's in Minneapolis reported that the state sought to investigate the shooting in collaboration with the FBI, but the FBI changed its course and then informed the state that the U.S. Attorney's Office was solely allowing the FBI to investigate. Now, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was asked about this at a press conference yesterday. She said that state officials and investigators do not have jurisdiction in this case, despite it happening in Minnesota and involving a Minnesota resident. A DOJ official told ABC News that they believe Minnesota officials have no intent to pursue a good faith investigation. So that was the context of what they were saying there in that press conference. Meanwhile, the area's county attorney's office says that it is exploring all options to make sure a state level investigation can continue. You can kind of hear a similar trend even from other elected officials who are outside of Minnesota. I can also tell you that Virginia Senators Mark Warner and Tim Kaine also saying that they believe there should be some probe into what happened in that shooting. So that was the backdrop, again, as we are now 2 days removed from that deadly shooting there in Minneapolis. Schools, meanwhile, are still canceled today because of the activity that has happened there in the city. Protests have been rising up throughout not only the city of Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota, but across the country. Even here in Hampton Roads, we're expecting to see some forms of vigils and rallies taking place. One in Norfolk later on today, I do believe, and then another over the weekend in the Williamsburg area by separate groups. So we're seeing these things pop up across the country right now after, again, that shooting of 37-year-old Renee Good over the last few days. Okay, I do want to switch gears here really quickly. We're going to get to the latest of that trial happening out of Uvalde. But I want to go to breaking news right now because we just got some information out of Virginia Beach that a trial date has been set for one of the 3 former sheriff deputies who were charged in connection to the death of a man. This just a few years ago in 2024. Roland Hill was his name. He died several days after being restrained at the Virginia Beach Correctional Center in 2024. There were several officers several sheriff's deputies fired as a result of that, but 3 were charged in that case, and one of them, Kevin Wilson, 34 years old, his court appearance for trial has now been set. We're just getting this. It is going to take place on February 8th. February 8th. Wilson is one of 3, along with Eric Baptiste, 39 years old, Michael Kidd, 39 years old. They all face counts of second-degree murder. Baptiste and Kidd also face counts of assault and battery for that situation that happened in 2024. We're going to have way more about that throughout the rest of 13 News Now coverage online, on air, and obviously through our streaming apps. But I wanted to get that in here as we just got that information from the courts that a trial date has been set for one of those former sheriff deputies that have been charged in connection to the death of Roland Hill. That will take place in February 8th in Virginia Beach. Okay, now we're going to go to another court trial that is taking place, this of a former school police officer in Uvalde, Texas. Right now, Adrian Gonzalez faces 29 counts of including child endangerment for his actions surrounding that terrible shooting at Robb Elementary School just a few years ago, where 19 children were killed and 2 teachers also. He's accused of not doing enough. One of many officers who responded to that scene that day, and it took more than an hour for them to actually confront the teenage gunman who was behind this terrible tragedy. Okay, right now the trial is underway. We're just going to go straight into it. This days after an attempt for a mistrial was blocked by the judge so that it could go forward. In the last few days, we've been hearing testimony from witnesses. So with that, let's go ahead and head down to Texas.
Exhibit 257.
That's going to be that's a view, a photograph view standing near the front door, near the entrance door of the classroom, looking back to the right at this wall. So this wall would be adjacent to the hallway. Just on the opposite side of this wall would be the hallway.
And on the opposite side of that hallway, would that be room 102? Excuse me. I've lost the numbers. 1 second. 111, excuse me.
Yes.
And exhibit 258.
This is going to be a bullet defect in the wall. Again, on the opposite side of this wall is going to be the hallway.
And exhibit 259.
That's going to be a closer angle of the bullet defect in that wall.
And exhibit 260.
This is going to be a view from the hallway looking into the classroom 105.
And 261.
That's going to be what appears to be a bullet defect from outside in the hallway, looking at the top left corner of that door going into 105.
And once again, across from that room would be 111, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So based on the glass being shattered in this room 105, as well as these defects in the walls, are you able to determine the origin of that one fragment in 105?
The one fragment, so the windows in this room were not shattered by bullets coming from the exterior to the interior. This one appears that the bullet came from the inside, from traveling into this room from the hallway, going into the room. So it was from the interior of the building.
And how are you able to exclude that it didn't come from the shattered window?
Because there were no bullet defects that we found in the window
itself. Okay. Pass the witness.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Ranger, we briefly shook hands yesterday, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Nico LaHood. I represent Adrian, one of 3 lawyers who represent Adrian. You've done this before. You've testified, so I'm just going to jump right in.
Sure.
Okay. You're obviously qualified as a trajectory analyst, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you described to the jury yesterday what that is, but you're trying to determine pathway of a bullet, a trajectory analysis, from its origin to its endpoint, correct?
Correct.
And often they use your skill set with wound path analysis, right?
Yes.
Right, because it's the next step. If somebody unfortunately is struck by that trajectory, then the wound path should match the trajectory of the starting point and the end point where it rested.
Yes.
Okay. What training does an individual like yourself go through to do this type of analysis?
Well, as a Texas Ranger, we all have to go through a 3-week advanced crime scene school. We do lots of continuing education throughout our careers. One of the schools that I went to was a 10-week course of study at the University of Tennessee, the National Forensic Academy. That included shooting reconstruction, and those are the main, I guess, the main educational courses that I've been through.
Okay. And I think you said it on direct. I mean, this is not an exact science.
Are you talking about what, tracing the path of a bullet?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, bad question. Yes, sir, the tracing the path.
Bullets do weird things sometimes.
I
So,
know you
yes.
just said that yesterday. They do. And so they're educated guesses.
Yes.
And you said they can go in a million different directions. Once it hits something, bullets are just, they do things that are weird.
They can.
Often unexplainable.
Yes.
Okay. So now I want to direct your attention back to what you did there. And so you did this analysis. Is this the extent of what you did during your assignment or your duties of what you were given?
Are you talking about at Robb Elementary?
Yes, sir. At Robb, from the rooms that you looked for evidence, is that's all you did?
I did a few other things there, but that was my main assignment.
Did you have anybody assist you in this endeavor?
There were some other rangers that assisted, yes.
So you made the determination that the majority of the defects that you saw on the west side of the building came from outside.
Correct.
And you were mentioning things about the frame of the window and the indention of the entrance versus the exit. That's called beveling, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And will you explain to the jury what beveling is?
So beveling is, again, like, I guess, could we pull up that photograph of
Sure.
one of the window frames?
What do you remember what number that is? Any one of the window frames?
Yes. Any one of them showing that exterior defect and the interior defect.
They're right here. 183, for the record, Judge, it states Exhibit 183, 184, and 185. I think we have it here. That's 183, Ranger.
That will work. Your Honor, may I approach the screen?
Yes, sir.
So, in this one, if the bullet were to come from the exterior of the window, so from this side of the window coming out, this is an exit defect. So as it passes through this, surface, it makes the entrance defect and the exit defect. It bends the metal like I talked about earlier. It doubles it out. So kind of makes it to where you can tell the direction. As the bullet passes through this surface, it bends the metal coming out.
And so, thank you, sir. You can have a seat. And so, an entrance defect is smaller and cleaner. Is that a fair statement?
Generally speaking.
Yes, sir. Generally. And then an exit defect is usually larger and not as clean.
Correct.
I mean, irregular, I guess is the better word to use.
Yes.
Okay. And this is why you said, I think at the end of your testimony, that there were some defects in room, I thought it was room 105, that you believed were coming from the inside of the building.
Yes.
And when you use those trajectory rods, they're trying to trace back. So you're kind of start from the end point. You have to know where the entrance and the exit is, or the beginning and the ending. and you're trying to connect those lines together, and that's why that rod needs to be straight.
Correct.
You can also use a laser.
Yes.
When does someone like you decide when to use a laser or a rod?
I could have used a laser here. There were so many bullet defects, but you can use a laser at any time during this process.
And that's just more of a preference?
Yes.
Is one more reliable than the other one?
Well, lasers are obviously, they're going to be straight. Rods, you do have a little bit of play in them. Sometimes we have the plastic cones that you can put inside of a bullet defect that the trajectory rod will fit in, so it kind of centers it more in the bullet defect itself.
And on two different occasions, at least that I heard, you talked about the trajectory of the bullet going through a window, through a classroom, through a hallway, or into a ceiling. It kept traveling.
Correct.
Is that correct? And so when you see what appears to be the end of the trajectory, it could have kept going. You never know, right?
Unless, I'm sorry, if you.
What I'm saying is, if you saw a defect in the ceiling tile, you obviously don't know. The bullet kept going. You didn't find the actual bullet.
Some of those, yes. There were some defects up above the ceiling tiles. Sometimes it was hard to determine exactly where they came to rest, but passing through those ceiling tiles, yeah, there was rafters up there and all kinds of things.
And just as a side note, the government's not going to contest us on this. The person responsible for these defects and causing this damage is dead, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's not Adrian sitting at the table with us.
No, to my knowledge, no, absolutely not.
And you're correct, by the way.
Yes.
And so, at some point in your investigation, or you're part of this investigation, you heard that from the inside of the school, there were some rounds that went outside one of the windows, on the back side, on the east side.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Room 111 and room 112 had, there was a bullet or bullets that went out of the building from 111.
I did not do any of the evidence gathering or evidence analysis in rooms 111 and 112.
But you understand there was defects outside of the building.
Are you talking about that came from 111 or 112?
Yes, sir.
Just maybe what I've heard through some of the other investigation, but I did not, I did very little in rooms 111 and 112 past identification of the victims.
But you would agree that you are considered and you've testified as an expert in trajectory analysis in the past?
Yes.
So may I approach the witness?
Yes. Yes.
Ranger, I'm handing you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 2 for identification only.
Okay.
You recognize Defense 2, do you not?
I do not.
Okay. Would you, let me get a bigger, I stay one.
Okay.
Thank you, Jason. I'm also showing you, Ranger, State's Exhibit 1. Now, this is Robb Elementary.
Okay.
Do you recognize it? Okay.
Yes.
She has to type all this down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And this is the west side of Robb Elementary?
Yes.
And this would be considered the south side?
Yes.
And this is the east side?
Yes.
And then room 111 roughly, this is the state's exhibit, but is in here, room 111 and 112 on the east side?
Yes.
And these are what they call wings of the building. These are extra buildings on the campus?
Yes.
And you might not know, but they're lettered from A to E. This would be Echo E, correct?
I'll take your word for it. Yes.
Okay, yeah, well, they're lettered. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And so on Defense Exhibit 2, this is a close-up of what? Would you agree that's a close-up of a defect? Regardless of where it's at, that's a defect.
It appears to be, yes.
Okay. And did you do the analysis on Defense Exhibit 2, Defense Exhibit 2 defect?
I did not.
Do you know if anybody did the analysis on Defense Exhibit 2 defect from Building E?
I don't know.
Are you aware that this is these are metal buildings, so defects trajectories will affect metal different than other surfaces.
So I'd say that's a fair statement.
And metal is very, I mean, metal's not a, it's not a cover. I mean, it's more concealment. It's not going to protect you from a bullet.
Depends on what kind of metal. Are you talking about like the thin metal building?
The thin metal buildings, yes, sir.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Judge, at this time, we'd like to offer into evidence Defense Exhibit 2.
Any objection?
I don't believe he'd been able to identify it. He said he didn't work on that defect, he didn't see it. If they're offering it just to say it's a defect, I have no objection.
Well, yeah, they're going to want it in later, I'm sure, so we want it in.
I don't know, do you have an
There's no objection.
All right, it's admitted.
Can we publish it to the jury, Judge?
Yes.
Okay, so that defect right there, if that were to be on the top part, because that's where the electrical is, on the top part of building E, then they, excuse me, you testified earlier that whenever there's a defect up higher, usually the source of that trajectory is lower, correct?
I think it depends on each circumstance. I mean, depending on what other evidence is present to indicate that the muzzle of that weapon would have been lower.
Sure. I mean, obviously, if somebody was in a building shooting down, that could be a possibility,
Yes.
right? But there are no buildings higher than this structure around Robb Elementary that you recall.
That I can recall now.
So if somebody is on the ground and the muzzle is lower and shooting up, then the defect would be higher on a building.
Generally speaking, yes.
Right. And you don't, and you yourself, hopefully we'll get someone else to talk about this, but you yourself did not, that's not your evidence there, your
That's
evidence
correct.
marker.
No.
But a defect on a building like that, behind a structure that had a lot of gunfire, it would be very difficult to pinpoint where that came from. Was that a fair statement?
I think there's a lot of variables with that. It would kind of depend on if there's another corresponding defect on the opposite side of that wall, or even within that wall, if we could see where the bullet passed through this surface and made contact with another surface. If there is a corresponding defect, that gives us 2 points of reference to put a trajectory rod or a laser.
But correct, that is right. Okay, but and you don't know if that was done on this defect.
I do not.
If somebody on the east side, may I approach, Judge?
Yes.
If somebody on the east side in front of this building, sorry, the west side.
South?
This is south, I'm so sorry. Ranger, you're right, I'm wrong. So on the south side of the building, correct, made a claim that there were multiple shots fired at that individual. Is it fair to say that we should see defects like this multiple times in this area?
Okay, can you, I guess, repeat that? I want to make sure my logistics are correct.
That's okay. If somebody, as an expert, if somebody is claiming there are multiple shots on the west side of the building here, in front of this structure.
This is the west side.
No, I'm getting myself confused. You're right. This is the west, on the south side of the building.
Okay, so if a suspect is, or if a person is here?
If a witness is on the south side of the building.
Okay.
Claiming that a suspect fired multiple rounds at them on the south side of the building.
Okay.
We should see defects somewhere in one of these buildings, E, D, or even C.
If it struck one of those buildings, yes. I mean, obviously it could pass through as well, but if it struck one of those buildings, that would make sense. That would be logical.
But right. But also, let's talk about the pass through, because you said something. If those rounds passed through, there would be defects passed in structures behind that, right?
Correct.
So, in my initially confusing example, sorry about that. If somebody was on the south side of Robb Elementary and made a claim that a suspect shot multiple rounds at this individual, we should see defects here. And that you said initially, yes.
Possibly, yes.
Unless they passed through, but then we should see defects here.
If it struck that, not necessarily, because again, bullets do weird things. Depending on the trajectory of it, if it's going higher and over the building, if it goes lower and into the ground, there may be a bullet in the ground. So in that general direction, if it's on a level plane, generally speaking, Shooting from that direction to this direction, again, perfect conditions, level plane. Yes, there may be some bullet defects on these buildings over here.
Yeah, and bullets don't just go forever, right?
Correct.
And that's the reason why on New Year, there's many warnings that people don't shoot a gun up in the air, because that bullet that gets shot up, even though they don't intend this, has to come down somewhere.
Correct.
So bullets shot in directions, they have to go somewhere. They don't just disappear.
Correct.
Okay. And so that's all I was saying. If somebody is on the south side claiming a suspect shot multiple rounds this way, multiple, not one, multiple rounds, we should see some defects over here.
Possibly.
I want to direct your attention, because I think the government asked you a little bit about where some shells were laid. Hold on one second, Ranger, I'm sorry. Before I move on to the shells where they were laying, but seeing defects on structures behind the example that I gave you would corroborate this individual's, in our examples, claim that they were shot at multiple times on the south side of the building.
If that were a bullet defect that you showed me, yes, that would lend credence to that.
Not that one particularly. I'm just saying, if in my example before that, we talked about an individual making the claim that there were multiple shots at them. There should be, if there were defects in the structures behind that person, that would corroborate the person's claim that they were shot at multiple times.
If those defects were present, yes.
Yes, sir. Now, I want to direct your attention now to some pictures the government went over with you yesterday on the placement of some outside shells. And when I say shells, that's the casing, right?
Yes.
So when a gun is fired, if it's a semi-automatic, it has to extract the shell once the bullet is.
Correct.
If I have a revolver, that's not going to happen.
Correct.
And a revolver involves a double action where you pull and it winds it up, and then the hammer comes down and hits the primer, and the bullet will go out.
Correct.
But there's not going to be an extraction of a shell because it's going to stay in the cylinder.
That's correct.
And in the old days, the Rangers used to carry single sixes, right, where you have to pull it back every time and then shoot. It's a single action.
It's been a few years, but yes.
Well, yes, you don't look that old, trust me. But now a semi-automatic is where someone can pull the trigger repeatedly, and then it will continue to be fed in through the magazine. It's not a clip, it's a magazine, and the bullet will be sent out, and then the casing or the shell will be extracted.
Yes.
And every weapon has a different, well, depending on the manufacturer, a different extracting mechanism.
Yes.
Handguns extract their shells different than maybe a long rifle.
Yes.
And when I mean long rifle, what do we mean when we use the term long rifle?
A long rifle is usually just going to be a larger weapon. It's going to have a stock and a longer barrel on it.
Do we call a deer rifle a long rifle?
Yes.
Well, we also call an AR-15 or an AK-47 a long rifle as well.
Correct.
And so with a long rifle that's not a bolt action, which is a deer rifle is a bolt action, right?
Correct. Well, some of them are, yes.
Some of them are, right. Some are semi-automatic these days.
Yes.
But when I was hunting younger, it's bolt action where you shoot it and then you pull the bolt up, you enter another shell, another round in there, and then you can fire it.
Yes.
Okay. But an AR-15 is a semi-automatic.
Correct.
And so you can shoot that weapon as fast as you can move your finger.
Correct.
And so when you're doing that, casings are being extracted.
Correct.
May I stand up briefly, Judge?
Yes, sir.
And so there's a difference if one of these officers or yourself is tactically holding the rifle in your armpit, if you're coming into a room, versus, and I'm not making light of this at all, the only thing I can think of is like a Rambo where you're holding it low, shooting.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm coming in this way, and if I'm in the same position, I'll come up here so the jury can see. If I'm in the same position and I'm shooting, I'm only going low because in my head I don't even like to pretend to point a weapon at somebody. So if I'm coming down and I'm shooting this way, it's going to extract the shells this way.
Okay, we're going to break out of the Uvalde trial for a moment here and take you up to Hartford, Connecticut, where the mayor there is discussing an incident last night outside of the federal courthouse. We believe this is involving what was mostly a peaceful demonstration outside of an ICE facility, in which we're seeing reports there that a man then came and started pepper spraying the crowd who had gathered in protest of the ICE agent shooting in Minneapolis. Okay, so I do believe this is the mayor here. I will let him describe the series of events and what his response is.
Place at 6 p.m. Outside of the federal building, the Rivercuff building at 450 Main Street. It's estimated that approximately 200 people were in attendance. At one point, a group of attendees observed some federal employees exiting the rear of the building on the Sheldon Street side and attempted to obstruct their exit. One of those vehicles that we believe was driven by a federal employee made contact with a protester, knocking them to the ground. That individual was offered assistance at the scene by local first responders, but declined. I think it's worth noting that we don't have the identity of that individual, but we'll work to ascertain that. The individual, a separate individual, struck that same vehicle with an object, shattering the rear window as it was exiting. The vehicle drove off after that. The city and the Hartford Police Department were, after the protests, made aware of allegations of pepper spray being used, being deployed. The Hartford Police Department didn't themselves deploy pepper spray and weren't aware of the incident as it occurred. No arrests were made by HPD, and the crowd dispersed at approximately 7:45 p.m. I've instructed the Hartford Police Department last night to open an investigation and to treat these incidents like we would any incidents of violence in our city. So we will be investigating what appears to be a hit-and-run incident by what we believe to be a federal employee, as we would any other hit-and-run in the city of Hartford. We will investigate what appears to be assault two by an unknown individual with pepper spray being used on attendees of the vigil last night, as we would any other use of pepper spray, unlawful use of pepper spray in a public space here in Hartford. And we will investigate the incident of property destruction as we would any other incident of property destruction here in the city. But I want to make this clear, and I think this is really important. What we saw last night was a peaceful vigil in the city of Hartford turned violent. And that violence didn't come from the city of Hartford. That violence is a direct result of the lawlessness and recklessness of the Trump administration that has occurred over the past year, and that last night came here to the city of Hartford. It resulted earlier this week in the death of Renee Good in Minneapolis. That chaos that we saw last night didn't come from the city of Hartford. It has come out of the White House and been visited upon cities all across America. And last night, Hartford was just the latest. At the same time, we cannot give in to that violence, that lawlessness, because it's not who we are as a city. We must rise above. And I know people are hurt, they're angry, they're scared. Those are justifiable feelings at this time. But we need to make our voices heard in peaceful ways, because that's who we are as a city. As a federal administration tries to sow chaos and violence in cities like Hartford that have seen the greatest peace, the greatest violence interruption in this past year that we have ever seen. We cannot let them do so. We are going to continue to work to heal from this incident last night. We're going to continue to work to build a community in the midst of chaos. I want to repeat that one more time. As a city, we are going to work to heal from the incidents of last night, and we will continue to build community in the midst of this chaos. While the Trump administration seeks to sow violence here, we in the city of Hartford will rise above. We will work closely with our police department on this investigation as it is ongoing, but we will also come together as one, as a city, to heal and to move forward together. Thank you, and with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
How many police officers were at the protest? Because I'm sure they were aware that this protest would be happening. So were they there while all of this was going on?
I think it's important to note, we did have a police presence last night, and happy to answer questions on numbers. I think it's important to note that there was a very peaceful protest very peaceful vigil happening in the front of the federal building, that the vast majority of those individuals didn't engage in what was happening in the back, that many of these news cameras were there last night and weren't aware of what was happening in the back. Obviously, as soon as we were made aware, we worked to disperse that crowd and to restore peace to that street there. But I think from all of the individuals who were present that I've spoken to, Hartford Police acted both quickly but also giving those who were grieving and those who were demonstrating the room they needed to do so. The Hartford Police I think, does a remarkable job of allowing for public expressions of speech to occur peacefully, and we've seen that time and time again in the city, but interrupting incidents of violence.
So at this point with the pepper spray, at this point you guys are saying they're unknown individuals. I guess my question is, how many unknown individuals were deploying pepper spray, and do you know if they were ICE officers?
I should say this across the board. We have suspicions of, we strongly believe that the individual driving the car was a federal employee of some type. We have suspicions that the individual who deployed the pepper spray was in some ways affiliated with the federal government. We don't have any level of coordination or cooperation from DHS in this investigation that we have undertaken. And so we are not able to confirm that at this point, but we'll continue to investigate it. And this is important. Here in the city of Hartford, we believe in the rule of law. We believe in a system of justice that other jurisdictions might not always follow these days. But this is how a process plays out. There's an investigation. We look at the facts. And we prosecute based on those facts. And so Hartford PD is doing what the federal government sometimes fails to do in this administration, and conducting an actual thorough investigation.
Do you know for sure that the people in the car were federal employees, or again, those are also?
We don't. It's a strong suspicion, but in our reach outs to DHS, they have indicated that they're doing their own internal investigation that's been pushed up to Boston, and they're refusing to share any details with us until that completes itself. I don't expect, given our history with this administration, that the federal government will be complying and cooperating with us on this investigation. But we will, as soon as we get any confirmation of any details along the way, we'll certainly let you guys know.
You were just listening to the mayor there of Hartford in Connecticut. They are looking into two incidents that apparently took place yesterday while there were ongoing protests and vigils following that deadly shooting in Minneapolis. In one case, we are hearing from him and seeing reports that during that gathering, there is video showing a person pepper spraying people within the crowd. In a separate situation, it appears that they are investigating reports of a pedestrian being hit by a vehicle during a rally. And you heard it from the mayor there. They have reason to believe that there may have been involvement in this by a federal employee, though he said that he could not confirm it at this time, but he mentioned it. I'm repeating what he's saying there. So they are opening up investigations there locally in Hartford. All of this connected, of course, again, to the shooting death by an ICE officer of a woman in Minneapolis earlier this week. And right now we'll take you to Minneapolis, where we are seeing families and educators in the area who are speaking out right now. This is live. Remember, school has been canceled in Minneapolis yesterday and today because of the activity in the area. This is now their opportunity to share their thoughts.
Recess, because our kids aren't safe to go outside during recess. Since Wednesday's events, parents across Minneapolis, and not just immigrant families, are afraid to send their kids to school and to go outside. This isn't right.
Not right.
Here in Minnesota, we are a people who take care of one another. I've been working with other families at my son's school to make sure that kids in our community can get to school safely and can get the food that they need. Since the beginning of December, we've organized rides for kids. This week we're up to 30 kids. We've organized more than 90 deliveries of food to our families' houses. We will not let our kids go hungry. We've organized countless patrols at school bus stops and at pickup and drop-off. And we've organized support for families who have had primary breadwinners picked up by ICE. I do this work because I believe in my community. I want a world where all of our children can be safe and can get the care that they deserve. Every day when I help build connections of support between people, I'm building the world that I believe in. My favorite part of my ride program is the comments I get from community members who are giving rides. But did you know these high school students? They're so sweet. Or the best part of my day is when I get to walk this kindergartner home. You can join us. Join a school patrol or a mutual aid network. It is through being connected and working together that we will get through this. And we will get through this. ICE out of Minneapolis. I'm going to pass it now to Kristen Crabtree. She's another Minneapolis public school parent deeply involved in community organizing in Minneapolis.
Good morning. My name is Kristen Crabtree. I'm a mother to a student at a South Minneapolis high school and a member of Minneapolis Families for Public Schools. I am here today to stand with thousands of families and educators across the Twin Cities, and we are demanding ICE out of schools. ICE out of Minnesota. We are 5 weeks and 4 days into the invasion of our community by federal agents. Over this time, we have seen our neighbors abducted, countless neighbors taken from their homes, taken from their cars, taken from school drop-off, and from streets across the Twin Cities. This last Wednesday, we saw the impunity with which ICE agents are willing to point guns and use chemical irritants around children, around neighbors, around caregivers, and around educators. We have seen that federal agents are willing to shoot and kill caregivers in our community. During dismissal at our high school, ICE agents came racing around the corner, pulled up right in front of the building, and created a scene of chaos and terror. Children were still exiting the building to leave school for the day. Many educators, neighbors, and caregivers were present. Our children experienced repugnant behavior from federal agents with zero regard for their safety. Agents carrying weapons and video cameras tackled and abducted community members, including our teachers, on school grounds. Gun-toting federal agents had killed a woman just hours prior and came and created a chaotic, traumatic scene directly in front of the school, throwing chemical agents into a crowd and using physical violence against our children. United States federal agents created an assault upon our students and community on district property in front of the place meant to educate, nurture, inspire, and grow our future generations. This is not safety. This is indiscriminate violence intended to stoke fear and division. But here's the thing I know about Minneapolis. In this city, we love each other. In this city, we don't only know that justice is what love looks like out loud. In this city, we actively struggle to build towards that vision every day. And something I love the most about this city is that we know how to organize. Do not forget who we are. This is not our first time. And there are more of us than there are of them. Thousands of our neighbors have already come together to organize networks of care and protection because we know who keeps us safe. We keep us safe. Some are delivering groceries. Some are making sure that kids can get to school. Some are keeping watch over their blocks. And while others are working to ensure that families have a roof over their heads and a place where their children can sleep at night. Every day, I see our neighbors showing up for each other. And in this city, we love each other. And we know that love is an action. Every day is an opportunity to wake up and choose us, and to actively stay in the struggle towards justice together. And every day is an opportunity for us to choose ourselves, because we believe in the possibility of our people and the possibility of Minneapolis. We need ICE off of our streets, away from our schools, and out of our state. Check out defend612.com or Minneapolis Families for Public Schools on social media. There is a place for everyone in this moment, and I invite you to join alongside us. Thank you. I'll pass to Amanda.
Thank you all. To our neighbors across Minnesota, this moment is heavy, and it is also a call. Now is the time to get involved. Now is the time to choose community over fear. Now is the time to show up for one another. We welcome you in. There is a place for you to stand with us. And we know that this is not easy. Many of us are tired, grieving, seemingly at a loss for the right words or actions. But history shows us this truth over and over again. The people are the only force capable of turning the tide. This here today, this week, what we've seen at vigils and protests in many times, in many places, after the murder of George Floyd, this is what love looks like. What it means to be a Minnesotan. This is how we stand together against fascism. Not just by naming it, but by interrupting it. We are fighting for communities where all of us can be safe, no matter where we were born, no matter what school we go to or where we live. Communities rooted in care, not cages. In dignity, not deportation. In freedom, not fear. We will keep organizing. We will keep demanding accountability. And we will not stop until every one of our neighbors can live safely, freely, and with dignity. When I say ICE, you say out. ICE! Out! ICE! Out! ICE! Out! Thank you.
Right, so Eugene stepped out for a moment. That you were just listening to community members who are calling for ICE to stay out of the school zone areas there in Minneapolis following that shooting involving ICE agents and a woman who is actually an ODU grad. Earlier in the day, we also heard from other educators, so I'm going to go ahead and play that out now.
And every child in Minnesota deserves to attend a public school that is safe and welcoming. But that cannot happen as long as ICE remains in Minnesota. They need to leave our state, and they need to leave our schools now. They need to leave us alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, I'd like to introduce Wendy Marchek. She is the president of the Bloomington Federation of Teachers.
Thank you, Monica. Wendy Marchek, W-E-N-D-Y-M-A-R-C-Z-A-K. Good morning. I am a 20-year employee of Bloomington Public Schools, and I'm currently the president of the Bloomington Federation of Teachers. As educators, We're taught from day one that our first responsibility is student safety. Our job is to protect children and to create a warm, welcoming environment where our students can learn and thrive. That becomes impossible when ICE is stalking your schools. ICE agents deliberately wait outside the school building during drop-off and pickup times, trying to catch parents and take them away. The consequences of those actions are devastating. Everyone is scared and angry. Teachers feel helpless to protect their students. Students are not coming to school. Learning is being lost. Learning every child has a right to. Staff are afraid to come to work. Some educators are staying home because their own children are afraid to go to school. Families are turning to online schooling out of fear that their children may never see their parent again. Students are crying because they don't know if they'll ever see their friends again. The children are afraid, the adults are afraid, and we are trying to hide it. But teachers feel defeated. They miss their students, they worry constantly about families, and they ask themselves, how do you teach in an environment like this? We train for school shootings. We do not train for our own federal government to terrorize children. Ask yourself, would you want your child going through this? An entire student body is being traumatized by witnessing ICE activity around their schools. When ICE operates near schools, those schools feel under threat, and that is unacceptable. In Minnesota, we value education, yet right now, the federal government is scaring students, families, and school staff. That makes one thing painfully clear. Our children's safety and education are not being treated as priorities. If they were, ICE would stay away from schools. Stop using our children as pawns, stop terrorizing families, and stay away from our schools.
Thank you, Wendy. To close, I would like to once again urge everyone to join us in the statewide Day of Unity by taking some time to help your neighbors. Participate in community actions and joining in the moment of silence at 10 a.m. to honor Renee Good. I would be happy to take any questions at this time.
So when you talk about ICE agents showing up outside of schools during pickup, drop-off, can you give us some examples of like what's happening? Are they going up to students, or walk us through what that looks like?
So we've heard various things from across the state, from ICE agents standing close to school grounds during drop-off and pickup to circling the school properties. I don't know if anybody else would like to add some things, but Wendy, would you like to
add a little bit?
Yeah.
Our school, Valley View Elementary School, has been hit significantly. 142 kids didn't come to school yesterday, and we're just a tiny elementary. The ICE agents, one did pull into the parking lot, and they know they can't, so they were asked to leave. But they stand on the other side of the street. Our schools are in neighborhoods. So we know they're there, the teachers know they're there, and they are circling. And it was a family that does attend our school, their kids. They were not home, and we found a way to keep the children safe. But that's just one person, one family. Our teachers are literally following the buses home because they don't know on the other end if there's going to be a parent or not. They're literally shopping and buying products, everything that they can do because people don't want to leave their homes. And the students, all the students are suffering. They don't know the next day if they'll have a friend or not. And the teachers are just, they're scared. They want their kids back, especially their special education teachers. So that's just an example.
And then you mentioned an example, I think, of
You were listening there to educators in Minneapolis. Now, that was earlier today, and just before that, as Sarah told you, that was a live look at teachers and families in that community who were sharing their concerns about the activity that has happened there within the last few days. Now, we told you just yesterday that classes in Minneapolis had been canceled for yesterday and today. Now, some schools did go to remote learning, but you heard there from these educators their concerns for their students and the interactions that they have already been kind of seeing and hearing from families within their communities. All of this tied and connected to that shooting death of 37-year-old Renee Good in Minneapolis just on Wednesday by an ICE officer, which has now led to protest happening across the country. Here in Hampton Roads, we have some scheduled today and tomorrow, and of course they popped up in Minnesota, Minneapolis. We just heard from the mayor of Hartford, Connecticut, about protests there that now have led to 2 different investigations because of situations involving a vehicle hitting a pedestrian and a person who used pepper spray against protesters there in that community. So there is just a lot that is coming out of this one situation here in Minneapolis, and we have been closely following it, of course, here on the stream and on 13 News Now, and we'll continue to do so. But right now, I want to switch gears because we have a very special conversation and guest with us here in studio for Live Impact News. I want to welcome in Janet Roach, our beloved anchor here at 13 News Now, who joins us after she has put together a 30-minute, a half-hour special digging into the Trump administration and others' aggressive tactics to dismantle diversity, equity, inclusion, and what that means for our communities. And so, Janet, thank you so much for joining us. Man, this has been a project you have really worked really hard on. Tell people about the project in and of itself and what you were hoping to accomplish.
Well, first of all, Eugene Daniel, you worked with me on the project. He's not giving himself credit, but yeah, he was a partner with me on this. It's DEI a discussion, and that's simply what it is, and getting people to talk about how they see diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also how they view the dismantling of that. We know that it was about this time last year when the Trump administration came in, they very aggressively decided that we are going to get rid of DEI. There was an executive order that was signed on January 20th. To do away with DEI federal programs. Some of these programs were programs that were put into place by the Biden administration with an executive order that he had done, when he was in office. And so as we watched, I think every week, on every other day, there was some sort of news story that came out about something that was happening in the area of DEI and getting rid of DEI. And so, Eugene, you and I had some conversations about it. We were getting feedback from people that we knew in the community. And so we decided, why don't we put together a panel of people who are watching this and are feeling like this is a detriment to historical progress, and get their feelings and hear their arguments as to why they think that DEI is actually a good thing. We also talk to many people who are on the other side of the equation who feel like it's time for DEI to die. So we talked to Governor Youngkin, Jason Miyares. I talked to a member of the Heritage Foundation. A lot of that Heritage Foundation has been in the news a lot. I know a lot of people say they're the people who are responsible for Project 2025. So I talked to a senior fellow with the Heritage Foundation. They've been one of the leading voices against DEI. So we put this all together, put all these voices together, and including the panel. And so, 30 minutes later, there it is.
And you mentioned my efforts in this, and it was definitely such an honor, Janet, to work with you on this and to kind of navigate the starting of it with you. But the work that you put in, I really hope people watch this documentary because there is so much into it, just even in 30 minutes. And I know we have a few clips that we want to show people.
Yeah.
And so let's start off with the first one here that kind of intros how this discussion and sets the tone for the special.
Okay. We brought together this group of people to deliberate over a topic we hear so much about.
It is a conversation.
DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Words many say project strength, now being strangled by a narrative of division.
A lot of times individuals forget about accessibility. When we talk about socioeconomic factors, I don't want to dilute race, including LGBTQ, veterans, youth.
These are experts who understand the meaning of DEI and say its purpose is being twisted, its promise mangled. What is diversity, equity, and inclusion?
A set of concepts and principles meant to inform policy, governmental practices and institutions and social institutions to correct racism, to correct bias, to correct discrimination, and to then usher in what we would consider and understand as people in this country to be fair.
Religion and culture and your sexual orientation and all of it is not something you see when you walk out the door. And so it is an attempt to embrace the intersectionality of it so people feel included but also feel like they belong.
So that is the introduction there, Janet. We were talking about a panel that, we were able to assemble, and the dialogue there that day alone. I remember sitting there with you. We talked for at least 2 hours?
Yeah, it was supposed to be about an hour.
Yeah.
And it stretched, and we ended up just having to cut it off. So there was no real packaged ending because people had so much to say about it. It was about 9 people on the panel. You heard there from Dr. Kalita Fairfax. She's with NSU, social justice policy professor, and then the other person speaking there was Stacy Walls. She is the CEO of the LGBT Life Center in Norfolk. So we got people from all different backgrounds, and it was a very, lively discussion, and their arguments. I really hope people will listen, and because people, I think there's been so much misinformation about DEI, and I think one of the biggest things that people get wrong, that some people would argue is wrong, that when you have these DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and programs, that when you are helping certain groups of people, you're hurting other groups of people. And I know that was not supposed to be the intention of DEI, but people see it that way. And so it's interesting to listen to some of their arguments as to why they see DEI is important and how they see it correcting some of the systemic barriers. So one of the things that I do in the discussion is I talk about an issue that stems from decades ago, housing. And everybody can relate to housing and some of the discriminatory practices that were going on in the area of fair housing, and how you can take those practices from back in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s and see how they still resonate today. And why there might be policies in place today that sort of address some of those systemic barriers. And a lot of the funding and those policies are part of what's being put on the DEI cutting board.
Janet, one of the things that, speaking to that, I remember taking away from it as well in that discussion. You mentioned how the impact of one group, how it can impact other groups. It was just a general idea that so many people have this misconception too, that DEI only focuses on one group. But there are so many groups that are impacted by those DEI policies that are benefited throughout our country and our communities. Now, you also were talking about housing, and I know another conversation that we got into that day was this idea of merit. How did that show itself in this particular the dialogue that happened not only in that panel discussion but throughout the makings of this documentary?
A very big word in this whole debate about DEI, merit, 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 because the feeling of people who are against DEI, they think that it undermines merit and that you're choosing people for certain positions or college admissions or what have you based on things like gender and race, and you're not choosing them based on them being qualified. And that's something that the panel did push back on, because some people would say that what DEI is, it's not about finding people who are unqualified and giving them things that they don't deserve. It's about expanding that talent pool and creating equitable access to opportunities, not taking away from another group and not saying, I'm going to give this to you because you're African American, because you don't really deserve it. I'm just going to give it to you because of your race. It's because historically, you've had so many instances where certain groups were not even brought to the table in the first place. And a lot of that has been corrected over time, but not completely. So, yeah, we do have another clip where we talk a little bit about merit. When we hear anti-DEI voices, one word that always surfaces to the top:
merit. You should be hired based on merit.
Merit, the quality of being particularly worthy, deserving.
We believe that whether you are a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an air traffic controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender. Very important.
Merit is based on assumptions. As a person with a disability, if I go into a job interview and say I have a significant physical disability, my resume has gotten me into the interview. You have seen in my resume something worth of merit to call me to an interview. But the minute you see a person with a disability who's coming in for a job interview, who may have a significant disability, merit goes out the window, even though my education, my resume says it. What is there is their assumptions. You're biased. There's a lack of knowledge. The disability community, we didn't get our civil rights until 1990 with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And if you say ADA today, a good percentage of the population think you're talking about the American Dental Association.
She's the CEO, the director of the Independence Center, END with an E. And Eugene, I know you spent some time there and talked to some of the folks there and got to see some of what they do. And they help a lot of people, with disabilities. And there's a struggle. They worry about some of these policies ending because they have to fight extra hard for a seat at the table.
And one thing that I really appreciated about Nicole and Independence as well is they really have a great grasp on communicating what the issues are, because as she would say, you can't just look at someone and know all the time that they might have a disability, you know? And so you have to be able to advocate. And sometimes in the case that we were able to go and interview one woman who is not only has been a part of in terms of receiving services through Independence, but now supports and works through it. Communication is a big thing, right? And so even in doing our interview for her, she literally had some people who were translating using sign language and then speaking back. It was just this really awesome moment of how collaborative efforts with everybody who was there at Independence to communicate. And it's so, you don't, that was my biggest takeaway from just that interview, is that there are so many ways in which these policies and DEI have supported people across the board that I know I wasn't talking about as much prior to even getting into it, and then within your documentary. And so for them, they're desperately hoping that these policies don't end because it supports them in everyday life.
Yeah, everyday life. So that was, and you'll see some of what you were talking about with the person, and they're having to do the deaf person actually, speaking and talking about how some of the things that she's able to do for people who go to the Independent Center. So I thought that was a good addition and a way to show, the different, you heard from Stacey Walls with the LGBT Life Center. You're hearing from Nicole Davis. We also have, Patricia Bracknell. She's the president of the Chamber for Hispanic Progress. Ramin Fatahi, who is the Commonwealth's attorney for Norfolk, is also on the panel. Michelle Ellis Young, she's the CEO of the YWCA of Southampton Road. So she works on a lot of women's rights issues. So this is a really wide net. This is really affecting a lot of people, and so much of this stemmed from that 2023 Supreme Court decision, Students for Fair Admissions against UNC and Harvard. And that's where the Supreme Court banned race-based admissions. And I think that case, people have looked at that case and they're stretching it into so many different organizations, both in the public and the private sector, and getting rid of DEI programs.
Now, Janet, when you were going through this process, you're going through your interviews. I was there with you for the panel discussion when you talked to more people after that, including those who are on the other side of this. Was there anything that stood out to you from those discussions? Anything that surprised you or that you thought were of note to mention here as we tease up the special?
Nothing that really surprised me, but I do know that they all say very similar things. And I talked about merit, but the other two words that come up a lot is reverse discrimination, illegal discrimination and reverse discrimination. And the governor mentions that we cannot have illegal discrimination. The attorney general mentions that, and they both talk about a case in Northern Virginia, Thomas Jefferson High School. That's a very elite high school. You may have heard of, and it has a tough admissions policy to get into this high school. Supposedly one of the best high schools in the country, if not the best. And so Miyares actually launched an investigation into their admissions policy because he says they were using a race-based admissions policy that was discriminating against Asian Americans. And so that went to court, and the court decided that the policy should stand, but now the Department of Justice is investigating the policy. And so that's something that, and I did ask, one of our, she wasn't on the panel, but Dr. Cassandra Newby-Alexander, history whiz, African-American history whiz, about, this argument of illegal discrimination. What do you say when people say we can't have reverse discrimination? And she has an interesting answer, so you have to watch in order to.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, and she is always so great in her responses, so calculated as well, if you've never heard from her as well. Now we have another clip too. And
yes.
So tell us about this this next clip that we're going to be seeing. What's the background on it?
All right, this is David Ireland. He is a Regent University graduate, and he's not actually in the special. So this is kind of like one of the extras that we're putting out there. But he is the founder and CEO of the Belong Group, Building Bridges Across Differences. And he's a diversity and organizational leadership consultant for many groups, including the NBA. And he says that, diversity, equity, inclusion is a good thing, but we're going about it all wrong. And he lists 4 things that we need to pay attention to when we're trying to enact DEI policies. So let's listen to what he has to say.
There are 4 components to cultural intelligence, one of which is knowledge. You have to understand what is it that we're dealing with, the values, the practices. Then you have strategy. That includes awareness, planning. The third is behavior, verbal, nonverbal actions. But where people go awry is in the fourth ingredient. The fourth ingredient is motivation. If someone, be they white, black, Latino, Asian, Native American, if they feel that there's no, what's the drive, what's the passion, what's the inclination, what's the motivation for me to be able to be diverse, then they're going to be opposed to it. And I think that much of the DEI structure has lacked that fourth ingredient, that they did not create motivation. Motivation has to be built around relationship and trust. And again, I'm using the term psychological safety. It has to become welcoming. It can't be just lecturing. It can't be a monologue. It can't be where one side is then given the voice and the other sides are not. And so when we think about inclusion must create the sense of belonging and welcoming. It's almost like if I invited you over to my home for dinner, I have to then think about, what do you like? And is the environment welcoming? Do you feel at peace? Do you feel at ease? Or do you feel that I just invite you over just to say something to you that I really just want to just pounce on you, so to speak, with rhetoric? And that's not a good thing. The benefits of inclusion when it comes to the marketplace is there's an uptick in profitability. There's a heightening of innovation. And so all around, there's a lot of benefits to having this sense of a cross-racial, cross-cultural experience in the workplace. In fact, I've created a framework which I call cultural portfolio management. And I did that, and I wrote an article that Forbes magazine picked up. And my perspective is that let's put DEI to the side then, since everybody's fighting it and demonizing it.
Right.
Let's look at it as we would look at our money. Every one of us wants to manage our portfolio, our financial portfolio. Well, we all have a cultural portfolio to manage. And if we don't manage it well, we're going to lose profit. We're going to lose good people. We're not going to attract a diverse clientele to heighten innovation. We're not going to compete on the global stage if we don't understand that. And so my framing of that, of another framework to deal with cultural intelligence and cultural management of cultural portfolio management is saying that you need to investigate your cultural portfolio and keep your eye on it, just like you keep your eye on your financial portfolio.
Absolutely. But in the way that it is being rolled back, and I read some things about your group and how you are working on connecting, diverse voices to businesses and that type of thing. In the way that you see the Trump administration rolling it back and cutting back on programs and I guess to some people would say threatening universities that if you don't do this, we're going to pull funding. Does that put us in a worse space? Do you see that as something as pushing us back, taking us, losing progress collectively as a country?
I do, in many areas. I think that what would have been a better call from the Trump administration would have been reframing it so that it's more equitable, reframing DEI so that we have open conversations so that we can be able to improve. It's going to affect us nationally because innovation heightens based on diversity. And when diversity is not occurring, be it in the marketplace or in different spaces of society, then we're not going to, meaning our nation, is not going to be able to, to compete on the global market in certain areas that we could have been. So there's going to be a little loss. But I'm very hopeful in the fact that whether we like it or not, there's a diverse country, and we better learn how to get along.
He said, we better learn how to get along. He speaks there, Janet. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what did you think about that?
I thought that his position, and some of them, I get what he's saying. There's power in diversity and managing the cultural diversity of it all as well. And that's what I was taking it from him. And his comments about rephrasing DEI rather than just getting rid of it. What did you think about that?
Well, I think part of that is that he feels like DEI has been so attacked and weaponized that people hear that and they bristle, some people. But it's kind of interesting when he talked about the motivation piece. And I was listening to that and trying to get what exactly is he talking about. And I guess I believe his argument is that in talking about inclusion, you have to always talk about including everybody. And including that, even though you may say these underrepresented groups are the people that need the most help, here are some of the systemic barriers that have held them back in some ways, that even in discussing this, you must always talk about how every group is included. Never leaving any group out of the conversation, because when you do that, then you get this backlash. Then you get this, oh, you're helping these people at my expense.
Yeah, I feel like I would love to sit down in a room and have a conversation with him about that, because I know just automatically I'm thinking of the conversation that, okay, well, we're looking at now, but we're also talking about groups that have either been disenfranchised or haven't had their fair share at the table for quite a long time. Historically.
Right.
And so I would imagine the argument against that would start there when you're talking about that equal conversation.
Right. I thought he made some good points, and it's a lot more. I'll have to try to pull up some more clips, because I think I talked to him. That was maybe about 6 minutes or so. I think I talked to him almost 15 minutes, and I thought it was really interesting. Really interesting conversation. But I think he makes some good points, and then there's some things where I'm still like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of this, right? I mean, we set out to have multiple voices to be able to speak to this, but definitely you want educated people who are in the space of DEI and can give a great perspective on what it is and what it means to have it dismantled within our communities. But for those who are going to be watching this, Jan, we got about 2 minutes left.
2 minutes.
I'll leave it to you to kind of share some lasting words here for the stream. What are you hoping people can maybe glean from watching this special?
Well, I hope they can learn more about what diversity, equity, inclusion is. And that, for some people who bristle at just the thought of it or just hearing those words, that you get, and that was my original, when we talked about, purpose with the panel, just a group of people, really, really smart people that can make some arguments that give you something to really think about it. That those moments where you say, well, gosh, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
That kind of introduces a point that has a lot of meaning. So I'm hoping people will do that. But I'm also hoping that, we haven't talked about this. I did do an interview with a member of the Heritage Foundation. And I just sent an email, and I thought, okay, they're not going to talk. But they were like, okay, yeah, when you want to do it. So I did talk to Mike Gonzalez, and he's very, very, very much against any kind of race-based anything. He's like, we've got to get race out of everything. And go back to, I guess, some other fundamentals, as he calls it.